Hello everyone, so welcome back to Dilip IT Academy and my name is Dilip Singh. As part of our microservices sessions, previously we implemented config server as part of our application development, right? So we understood the importance of config server implementation with respect to centralizing and externalizing the configuration information from microservices, right? And continuation to that, we have to understand now config clients also. So that means as part of current session, we are going to see more about how we are going to implement config clients and how we are going to integrate our config clients with config server. For that, what are the steps we have to take care, and as well as whenever we are working with microservices architecture, and we are going to have two types of configuration information mostly. That is, the first one is the configuration information common to all microservices or multiple microservices, and the second thing is configuration information specific to a microservice or just like private to a microservice point of view. So then whenever we have configuration information with respect to all microservices, then how we are going to configure that information as part of our config server implementation, we are going to see in this session. And as well as whenever we have configuration information specific to a microservice, that means that should not be exposed to other microservices, then how we are going to deal that configuration information as part of config server implementation versus config clients, we are going to understand in this session. Along with that, we are going to understand how whenever we are having profile based configuration information with respect to development environment, production environment, local environment point of view, so then how we are segregating the configuration information across all our microservices. Again here, common microservices information over specific microservices information along with profiles, that kind of information also we are going to see in this current session. Let's enter into a hands-on session right away. So now if you go back to our microservices once again, so from our previous session, what we did, if you go to the main application.property, see, this is the user microservice. Right now, I opened application.properties from the user microservice. So what we did, guys, we deleted all DB details as well as that service registry URL from this properties file. And why? The purpose is now we are centralizing, we are externalizing outside from the microservice point of view. That's the reason we deleted from every microservice. If you go here, so there is no database details, there is no service registry URL. And if you go order microservice, there is no DB details, there is no service registry URL. Why? Based on our config server point of view, what we did, we moved that information to this application.properties file. That means we moved to GitHub repository, nothing but config server. Now this data already we maintained at config server level. Now we have to make sure our user microservice pulling from here directly or indirectly, order microservice pulling from here. So payment microservice pulling from here. Pulling means in between you will have config server. So then only your applications will start. Otherwise, see here, right now, even if you started user microservice, it will say like DB credentials are missing. So that's the reason what we have to do. We have to make sure our microservices enabled and integrated as config client. So how to do that? Step number one, add config client dependency, config client starter, whatever it is. So go to one microservice first. Okay, see, this is the expected only, right? Because we don't in the directly we don't have here. Now let's go to the user microservice. Okay, so what you have to do, you have to add this starter. Right click, Spring, add starter. So in the existing microservice, what we are doing, we are adding this starter. So which starter? Spring Cloud Config client. This time what you are doing? Client that connects to a Spring Cloud config server to fetch the application configuration. So that is what about the config clients. So this is the statement we got right now, right? Yeah. So this is the client connecting to the config server and to fetch the configuration data. Okay, fine. Next. And here I said already select only pom.xml. Then you can, the latest change being added into your existing pom.xml. This is the one way you can do, or you can copy paste from the internet also by searching with the config client starter like that. If you go to the pom.xml file, yeah, so this is the starter added, guys. This is the starter dependency added right now. Let me copy paste here. Yeah, you can add this one directly. So see here, Spring Cloud Starter config. This is the dependence. Step number 1. Step number 2, add config server URL in our microservice configuration file level. Why? Obviously, right? We have to give the address. Yeah, we need to tell to user microservice, hey microservice, go and connect it to this config server like that. We have to give the config server address. So user microservice application.properties. So what we are giving here, config server address. Config server address we are providing here. So I'm doing same change for the user microservice for the first. Okay. So now I'm saying to the user microservice, hey microservice, whenever you started, please connect to this config server, and then config server will share the information back to you by getting data from the GitHub level like that. See, overall, this is config server application in general, config server. Now user microservice, making a call to config server. So for that, what you have to do, you have to give the URL. So for that, we have a predefined property, spring.cloud.config. See, these are all properties you can see once your starter is added successfully, guys. Otherwise, you can't see this. Import additional configuration data. I think this is the one we have to take. So what is that property they given is? This is the property they given. So here we will provide a URL. I think they explained everything. See, this is the advantage of going through the official documentation. So this will give you a lot of information. So from which version onward they introduced all these things like that. This will connect to the config server at the default location of on this port number. In case, even though you're not given anything, by default it will connect it here. But we given port number as what? 9999. So that's why we have to mention specifically like this. This is where like that I given and all. So we have to give our, even we given context path also. So if you given context path also, then you have to specify context path also. See how clearly these guys are explaining. Spring Boot config data resolves configuration in two-step process. First, it loads all configuration data using the default profile. We discussed already profiles in the Spring Boot level very clearly. So default comma dev comma, when you loaded dev profile, what will happen? It will give load default data also. So default profile data will be loaded every time, even though you are running other profiles. So like that, we discussed a lot of use cases at that time. So now let's form our URL. So what is that? Our URL http://localhost:/9999 we given our own contact port number, as well as we have context path also, right? So yeah, just copy paste from here also, it will be good. So localhost 9999 config server. So we are telling, so this property we have to add in every microservice. So total 2 things we did as of now. One is added this starter dependency. Step number 1. Step number 2, we added this URL. So here you prepared, we given our config server URL. Okay, this is the property you have to follow like that. Config server URL we are giving here right now. Okay, now let's start our microservice once again. See, what I'm doing right now is, first I'm starting the gateway application. Okay, gateway, I think there is no relation with the gateway, right? So we are not done any gateway and config server point of view right now. Gateway I can start, even registry also I can start, because services registry is a separate individual application. Can we integrate services registry application with the config server? Means yes, 100%. Can we integrate gateway with the config server? Means yes, we can do that. So that means tomorrow your manager said, okay, your requirement is saying like, hey man, you did lot of configuration in this properties file. Why are you keeping in this? Can we keep this data inside config server? Can you move this data to config server level? So that means nothing but what gateway is also integrating as a config client with config server. Yes, you can do that. Simply convert this also as a config client and provide the config server URL and provide this data in the config server. I'll tell you that you can practice it. Yeah. Now, see, as of now, I did not started user microservice. I just started API gateway and then localhost 8761/register. Yeah. So service registry as of now, only gateway is registered. So now I'm starting user microservice. See what will happen right away. Okay, let me start one instance first. Even if you started 3 at a time also, no problem. Okay, let me start 3 at a time. Now here, one line you have to observe. That is what my point here it is. Okay, let it be started first. See, this time looks like you are not getting that DB error. Your microservices got started. And if you observe here, for the first line, what is this, guys? This is what it is doing. Your microservice, user microservice application, whenever you started, if you observe these lines, what it was saying for the first time, user microservice is getting started. Okay, fine. And in the next, what it is doing? No active profiles. Yes, this is Spring Boot profile concept, and we know that. So that by default, internally, it will take always default profile. Okay. And see here what it is doing. Fetching configuration from the server. This. So that means that's what I explained you the day one here. So whenever you made a call to config server user microservice point of view, whenever you started, for the first step, what it will do is it will make a call to config server. Based on what profile you started, with that information, it will make a call to config server. Now config server will respond with all the configuration data back to respective microservice. Now respective microservice, what it is doing, once it got the config server information, see located environment. It is saying like config server point of view, location, and see what it is saying, located environment. So that means it is establishing the connection with config server successfully. And it is saying like, okay, user microservice point of view, profiles is default, label is something like that. Finally, it made a successful call to config server. And it then config server given this information, okay, from this GitHub repository, whatever it is loaded. So this data available in the GitHub repository. And that GitHub repository data got to config server, and config server finally shared same information back to user microservice. Finally, this data came from where, guys? GitHub to config server to microservice. Like that, you can make all your microservices with same steps now. See, all three microservices got started with respect to DB details, and go here. Now go to the Eureka server. See, user microservice is registered. But you don't have, if you go to the user microservice application.properties again, you don't have the service register URL. Then where it picked? It is picking from here. It is picking from config server. We move to config server level. Similarly, what you have to do same for order microservice also. Step number 1, add dependency. Okay, so go here. See, similar to Eureka client, what is the dependency you have right now is, this is the dependency we have to add. So after that, add this URL in this application or properties, order microservice. So I'm providing this here. So this is the config server URL. That's all. Now it will pick up data from where? Again from this same config server, because we given config server URL, right? So it will call the config server, and config server will provide the information back to order microservice. See here again, I'm starting order microservice. Observe the logs. If you observe these logs, what it is saying, falling back, okay, default profile, fetching configuration from the config server. So that means again order microservice, what it is doing, order service application, it is also calling first step as a, hey config server, please give me all the configuration data. Like that, it is making a call. Then config server is providing all the DB credentials, data, service registry URL, whatever you configured here. All this data is dumping into runtime memory level here. Now by using that data, see, your database got started, your service registry, it is connected to the service registry application. It is registered with Eureka service registry application, and everything is happened. All 2 instances got started. Now go here, Eureka server. See, this time you can see order microservice also started. Let's do same for the payment also, payment microservice. So without adding the, you know that, right? Without making as a config clients, it will not pick up default. See here, now I started without making any changes, and observe the logs, what it is trying to say. Okay, it got failed, right? Observe the logs. See here, it's not saying anything like I'm contacting the config server. That means why? Your payment microservice is not a config client. You're not configured that information. So that's the reason configs, it's not making a call to config server. That's why no configuration data. For that, again, same step you have to repeat. Okay, repeat same 2 step for all other microservices, especially in our point of view, order, payment also, etc., etc., etc. So what again? So go back. This dependency you have to add to the payment microservice, pom.xml, and go to dependencies, add new dependency, config server, and then second URL. Add this URL. Go to the application properties. See here, I provided the config server URL. Now I'm starting again payment microservice. So simple. The overall agenda, what we understood here, it is we are externalizing we are removing configuration data from the microservices point of view, and we are making in a common place. And that common place, we are calling it as a config server, and we are giving that address to this microservices. So that is the best approach, right? So instead of maintaining it every individual, see, now all microservices are up and running. But this time everything got data from the where guide config server. So now let's do one thing. I stopped config server. I'm stopping. See, once these microservices got started, then even though config server is stopped, nothing will happen. But when your microservices getting started, by the time config server should be ready. Now see here, I'm stopping order microservice, even payment or user microservices. See here now, if can I start order microservice first? Let's start. What it will say? It will try to make a call to config server, but config server is ready. But config server is ready. No, config server you are not started. It is trying to reach. It is trying to reach this config server. What you given here, but it is not started. It's down. This application is down. So that's why see here what it is doing. Internal, it is making a call continuously 4 to 5 times. 3 times it made a call to respect to that, and then it decided like this config server is down, then your application is not finding the data from your application file, then it is not started. So that means what you have to make sure, first make sure your config server application is up and running, then start your microservices. Yeah, now config server is up, then I can start clients. So that means server application should be first and then client application should be later. Yes. See, now all microservices will get started now, because now this time it is making a healthy connection to the respective config server. See, this is how, please understand always practically, guys. Please refer the logs. Every log will give lot of importance. Every log will give lot of confidence while you are practicing, while you are learning. Logs will help us like anything. I'm telling you, logs is the thing. The moment you started understanding the loggers, or you added loggers, you enabled the logging level to debugging mode, and you started understanding the flows. No one can beat you with respect to understanding practical point of view. So the moment when you will get practical knowledge is understanding all these things. It's not about practicing. So see here, load balancer call, all these things. Spring Cloud load balancer is currently working with the default cache. So see, these are all things you can understand very clearly. User service load balancing is enabled. It's making a call on this port number, everything. So with this, we are done with our basic Spring Cloud config server and config client applications. So that means what I'm trying to say here it is, with this, we implemented all our microservices as a config clients. And those config clients are getting data from the config server. Okay, fine. But the next point, what I will ask you here it is, we created config server. So overall, I'm writing like config server now. Yeah, now onwards, let's see a couple of use cases here. The real-time use case. Config server point of view, okay, you taken Git, that is a difference. Okay, GitHub or whatever it is, that's okay. Okay, another point here it is, you created a file called as application.properties. Now see the understand of use cases. So application.properties you created, and you here you given date, okay, that properties, respective config data. Okay. So now in this case, I have 30, 40, 50 microservices point of view. If I'm talking again, individual microservices point of view, microservices, nothing but config clients. Fine. Now, whenever a user microservice make a call to config server, what happened internally? It was providing configuration data back to this respective microservice. For example, in this case, user hyphen service. Okay, let me write proper thing, user hyphen service. So this is one more order hyphen service, and this is one more payment hyphen service, and etc 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 etc. Okay, let's assume like our basic figure 40 microservices one. So this config data, nothing but if you go to here, yes, this is the data, right? Okay, let me copy this data also, just high level point of view. Okay, so this is all data. It is given back to all microservices. We configured and it is giving everything. Now my next use case, point number 1, here it is. What is my next question? Here it is. In case my applications are having different profiles, then what I have to do? So then config data how it will pick up. So in case if you are having different profiles as part of your microservices point of view, if you are having different profile, especially dev, okay, UAT, prod. So I'm taking only 3 environments, nothing but 3 profiles point of view. Can we create this profile based properties file here or not? Yes, we can do that. So that means what you are going to do here it is, you are going to make one more file you are going to create here itself. See, same as it is, the 100% what you did in the uh, Spring Boot profiles point of view. Application.dev properties. Dev property. So here you can add all dev related properties here, which is specific to dev profile point of view. You can add you can add all that properties here. So now that means total how many files you have? Application.properties, application-dev properties. So application hyphen UAT.properties. So you can add all your UAT related properties in this file. Similarly, prod. So these are all use cases. You just need to try, guys. I don't know whether you will try or not. It's up to your choice. If you need profiles information, listen Spring Boot profiles from the Spring Boot sessions. You will understand it. Okay. So then property. So now what I am doing in this case, total 4 files I created. So these 4 files indicating in this case, now assume my applications, my microservices all are started in the default profile. If you observe here, by default, which profile? Default profile. And now if I am starting the user microservice and the dev profile, for example, let's go to the user microservice. So what I will do, I'll start here, bring dot profile active or something is there. Yeah, profiles active equal to dev. I'm starting from the dev profile. So this is what I given in the user microservice. So whenever you started on the dev profile, generally what we understood in our Spring Boot profiles point of view, active profile equal to dev I given right now. But internally what it will do, it will load from the default also. So that means in this case, this data will be loaded from this file. Okay, this one as well as common file also. So from these 2 files, data will be loaded. So to prove that, let me restart my application once again. Yeah, I started user microservice, right? Let me show you the logs once again. See, for this, you need to understand the Spring Boot profiles. If you go here, what? Or this time where it is started, guys? It is started from the dev profile. From the dev profile. Okay, but still your application got started. That means it got all DB credentials and everything. Why? You know that, right? In our Spring Boot, whenever we started on dev profile or any other profile, active profile point of view, it will by default include always default one. Default is always presented. So that's the reason right now, even though you don't have credentials in the dev profile level, here you have, right? Let me do one thing. Edit it. Let me delete. Okay, so I deleted all these things. Save the changes. Now what happens here? You don't have DB details in the application.properties as well as dev.properties also. Then what will happen this time? Let's restart your microservice once again. So in this case, config server, you have to restart one more time. I'll show you that one also. See, what I'm trying to say is how to deal with multiple profiles in microservices configuration data. Yes, simply whatever you did in our Spring Boot point of view earlier, whatever we understood, same here. You can create specific to profile files also. It will load data from there. See, this time what it is saying, it is trying to load from application.properties as well as dev.properties. But what happened? Both the places data is not there. Now I'm adding in the dev properties, same data. Okay, let's edit it. Okay, commit the changes, commit changes. Yeah, now let me restart my microservice again. See, this time I moved all those data to dev.properties. So it's running on dev profile. Observe the point. It's running on the dev profile and it is connecting to the config server and it is asking the config server, hey config server, could you please provide me the configuration data which belongs to dev profile. So see here what happened. This time it is got started successfully. Why? This time data is not there in the application.properties. It's available in the application-dev.property. Yes, it is loaded from here. So that means in case our microservices having different profiles, yes, just create profile-based configuration data also. Just create the profile-based configuration the data also. So I'm bringing back in the common file also. So now this is a common file. Okay. So that means what is the use case we understood right now? Here it is. In case if you have multiple profiles, yes, create profiles, create your configuration data with multiple profile files. So whenever you started your microservices, specifically on which profile and all, it will pick up data from there only. So that means, yes, you can do same thing with this config server point of view. See here now, all my user microservice, order microservice, payment microservice can access data from these 4 properties files. Not at a time, every time. So this is the default file and this is profile specific. If you started on the prod tomorrow, prod profile, your microservice started on the active profile as prod, it will pick up data from this file as well as this file also, because it's a default one. You know that this is the common default like that. Okay, this is use case 1. Now, second point from this, see, these are all interview questions, guys. Very technical interview questions, especially we will ask these questions in the experienced people also, because how they are managing the configuration data across profiles point of view and all. So second point here it is, okay, fine. From the above config data, all microservices are able to access commonly. So simply the point here it is, the above config data is accessible by all microservices. Yes, right? So that's why your user microservice, order microservices, everything gets started. Why? Whatever the data available in this case, it is accessible by all our microservice, user, order, payment, notification, wherever you made config clients, nothing but that is all config clients. Okay, cool. So that means commonly all config clients are accessing. That means I can say like common config data to all microservices. Okay, cool. But what is the point here? It is, how can we enable config data specific to microservice? So what is the point of specific to microservices? For example, if you go here, if I take a user microservice once again, application.properties. See, if I taken this property contact.email, we thought like this is the common property for all 40 microservices. So then I don't need to keep here in every microservice. I can remove from here and I can go to the application.properties and I will add this property once again here. I will add here. So that now what will happen? This property is automatically accessible by all 40 microservices because you added in the common file format called as application.properties. Okay, that is also cool. Now, if I taken these two properties, if I added, for example, assume, now here the question started. So in the application.properties, if I added this two information, what is the meaning of this one? Actually, this data belongs to user microservice, but I'm trying to add in the application.property. Okay, cool. So when you started user microservice, okay, it is making a call to config server. And it is picking config server port number, this microservice server port number as 8001 and as well as context path as /user. Okay, that's cool. Now I started order microservice. Then again, generally what order microservice is doing, it is asking the config server, hey, give me data. Then config server given this data back to, okay, order, let me give it to you like this. So then it is giving 8001 /user. Then what will happen? The moment order trying to utilize this data, by the time 8001 is already started. So that means your microservice will fail. Why? 8001 is already used. Same data shared again to the order. Now if I started again payment will make a call to the config server. Then config server is saying, okay, payment, let me give you the information. Like that, it is sharing to everyone same information because common data, right? 8000 along with DB and all, this information also came. 8001 /user. Actually, context path is different here. Here it is different. That means, especially this data is specific to microservice, not common to all microservices. So in this case also your microservice will fail. That means the rest of all microservices will fail. Why? Etc. Why? Because this data what we are configuring right now, okay, not common for all microservices. This is specific to microservice. Specific to microservice means what is the point? The data is changing from one microservice to another microservice. That means one microservice to another microservice, data is different. So that means if it is user microservice, what we decided? 8001 as the initial port number, context path as /user, if for the user microservice point of view. Okay, fine. Similarly, what we decided, order microservice point of view also, we decided like go to order microservice, application.property. See, the data is different. Okay, DB and all common, that's okay. DB service registry URL. But this data is changing from one microservice to another microservice. Similarly, if I go to the payment also, if I taken these two properties, see this property common, that's why we added in the common application.property. And this is also we added, okay, this is config server URL. Sorry, this should be there always. See these two details again I'm taking. So in this case, payment microservice point of view also, payment service microservice also, I added these two details. So that means what happening is here, sometimes you have data, config data specific to microservices. Specific to microservice means one microservice to another microservice data is different. Then what, how will you maintain? Okay, this is for payment, right? Yeah, okay. And I deleted. See what I am doing? I am deleting from the payment. And if you go to the order also, I am deleting from here. But I want to maintain this data also at config server level. That is why I am deleting from the microservice level. Okay, this I added in the common. I am deleting from here also. And what you did, payment microservice point of view also, same thing we did. Go to user microservice. So simply I'm just taking backup here. So what is my point here? To see this data payment, this is order microservice, this is user microservice. This is different, this is different, this is different. Then how can I maintain this data? If I maintain this data, what will happen? Control C. If you go to the application.property and add these two properties also here, then what will happen? By default, payment order microservices also going to access same information. See, I committed my changes. What I am doing is config server, stopping. I'm stopping user microservice, order microservice, payment microservice. See this time what I did, and you know that same data you cannot repeat two times. Same property you should not repeat two times. So now what will happen? 8001. See, for example, what I will do, I'll start payment service. Sorry, let me start first config server because config server is must and should, right? Yeah. I started config server. Yeah, it's up. Okay. Now I started payment microservice. Now understand what will happen. If you see here, what is this? Tomcat started on 8001/user, but actually I started which microservice? Payment microservice. Now, similarly, if I started user also, it will pick up same information. Then it will say like 8001 is already used. And context path is a different context path for you. Actually, payment point of view /payment. User point of view /user. Then what I had. So there, that means what's happening in this case, the moment you kept in the application.properties, what is the point you have to understand here it is? Point number one, summary here it is. Config data, which is added in application.properties file that is common to all microservices. Okay. Point number two, when we have config data, configuration data specific to microservice, then we have to create another configuration file with that specific microservice name. So what is the point I'm trying to say here? It is whatever you added always in the application.properties is common for all microservices. When you want specific to microservices point of view, yes, create one more configuration file with the name of microservice. So that means now what I have to do in this case, for all three microservices point of view, I'm going to create three properties files. Okay, I'll remove this from here because this is common. Commit change. Okay. Now what I will do, even this configuration data also we are moving to the config server level, but this is specific to microservice. Now with respect to user point of view, what you have to do, create one more file. What is this time? What is the thing you have to do? Go to the user. What is your microservice name? User service. User service dot properties. Commit the change. Sorry. Yeah. Save the file and commit the change, or you just add these two properties also. Control C. I'm adding here. Okay. So observe here. So now what will happen? In this case, the moment you started user microservice, whenever you started user microservice, understand the point, guys. It will load data from application.property. So that means what data you will get with this data. So this data will be loaded. Why? Because it's loading this time from the application.properties, as well as it will load data from the user service.properties file also. Why? This time what config server will do is, see, the moment whenever you created application with the name called as application, it is common for all microservices. When you created with specific microservice ID, then config server will understand, okay, config server, let me give you information like that. It will give information back from this file as well as this file also. So in this case, what's happening? It's loading from here as well as it is loading from here. Both the files it is loading. Now, if I started order microservice, then it will start by default application.properties. It will take data from there. And internally config server will check, is there any file with this microservice name or not? Is it existed now? No. So it's not existed. That means answer is no. So that means what will happen? This time the data will be loaded only from this application.properties. It's not like this time user microservice data will not be shared with order microservice. It should not be allowed. It should not be allowed. Why? That means in this case, it became private to only user microservice. So the data what you added here, that data is being accessible only for that respective microservice, not any other microservice. So if you want to make sure again order service point of view also, what you have to do, create one more file with that microservice name called as order-service dot property. See, you can create YAML file also. Okay, so there is no concept difference you will find when you added with the YAML and all. So you just try with YAML also. But only thing is, you know that what is the YAML file format and all. Now what I am doing, in this case, I am moving order microservice data to here. Commit the change. So total user order I created, still payment not created. Now let's start your microservice once again. Okay, I'm starting the config server, restarting once again because we made the change, right? Now let me restart user microservice first, save all changes. So now observe here, we started on default profile, that's okay, config server. And internally, okay, see, this is the service, a microservice name, right? You can't see those things here, but I am just showing you, trying to show that. So what will happen? My point is right or wrong. Let's see here. From here you can understand. So from where it got, guys, context path /user. See, this time, if you go to the user microservice, we don't have here context path, but from where it got from here, from where user hyphen service. If you go to the application.properties, yes, we don't have any context path, but we given this time microservice specific property level. Now, similarly, it will pick up when I started order microservice point of view also. What will happen? This time you have order microservice also, right? This time you have order microservice also. But microservice ID name should be given, guys. That's the rule. So this time what you did, you added like this. So that means the moment you started, it will allow you to access data from order-service.properties. That means you can access from your order as well as common. Common is always common, but it's not like you can't access user microservice. It became private to only user microservice. Similarly, user microservice cannot access order microservice information. So that is how you have to maintain all configuration files in this case. So now let's see order microservice started, right? See the context path /order. From where it is picking? From here. From here it is picked up. Now let me start payment point of view. As of now, I did not created anything. Then what it will do, guys? It will try to load from the application.properties. But in this case, you don't given any server port. You are not given any context path. Then what it will do? It will try to take empty context path and default port number called as 8080. In case if any other microservice using the 8080 port number, then you will get error again. Otherwise, it will occupy 8080. See here. 8080 context path is empty. Why? Because in the common properties file, it's not there. So that's why it is taking. So that means what I can do, I can make in this case also payment-service point of view also one more property file. Add file. File name is payment-service.property. Okay, and the content is, this is the content. See, this is completely your knowledge based on the Spring Boot profiles. Whoever understood Spring Boot profiles very well, then they can understand what we are discussing. It's just like logical thinking. That's all in this case. Okay, now let me restart my payment microservice once again. See, this time it will pick up the port number 8003 and as well as context path /payment also. By this time we created our own payment microservice properties file. If there is mistake in the file name with respect to this, your microservice ID, then it will not pick up. See, 8003 and payment. So that means overall config server level, what we did, guys, now we created individual microservice property files as well as common microservices. Like that, you can create specific to microservice as well as common. Now, for example, tomorrow you got a requirement like this. Okay, Dilip. So let's take a property and that property is common for 10 microservices. I'm assuming, so the requirement is the property is almost used in 10 microservices. So something like property name, I'll give let's take like this week dot days or 5, whatever it is. Some reason, some calculations, we are using this 5 value in 10 microservices, some interest whatever it is. Now this property, what I have to do? 10 microservices. This is the property value I'm expecting everywhere. So then where I have to add? So is it better to add each microservice specific config file or in common file? Nothing but application.property. So what is the point? So this is the assumption 10 microservices out of 40. Assume just like that. Now where I can add? Yes, go with application.properties. What will happen with this? It is okay. Even if required, 40 can also add. Not only 10, if required, 40 can also access. Nothing will happen, right? So you made entry in only one place, and that is automatically accessible by this 10 microservices. In case needs, other microservices also can access. So that this I can add here. Now, in the same requirement point of view, one more use case. Okay, assume you got requirement like, okay, Dilip, that's okay. But 3 microservices are having separate value. Some reason in some of the countries or whatever it is, assume some reason, separate value for the above property. So that means let's take some microservice. I'm taking one of the microservice. The value is something like 4 days. One more microservice point of view, the day value is 6 days. One more microservice point of view, the value is something like 7 days. Some reason this is the data I have now. Now what you can do? What is the best way to configure this property now? So same property, okay, 10 microservices point of view, 5 value, same value. That's okay. You added in the application.property. Now, in this case, if I got data from here, I will always get something like 5 only. So then what I can do in this case, we can override. What is the meaning of override? We can override same property in specific to microservice level also with specific value. So that means what? Now, assume this is the I'm taking like just like payment microservice for the first one like that. So what you will do? You will say like payment -service dot properties file. Inside this file, what you will do? You will add week dot days equal to something 4. So that means by the time already same property is available in the application.properties also. So generally we know that data loading from application.properties as well as private specific to microservice property also. Here you have week dot days, you given common value as what 5. Now this is what data you have. So the moment you started payment microservice, so now what will happen? Priority always given to specific microservice property and its value. So the data available in both the places means, so now priority given always to this one, priority given to this one. So that means finally value will be taken as 4 only in this specific microservice. Now rest of the microservices, wherever they are not added individually, right? Automatically it will become as a 5. Now similarly, these 2 microservices level also add same property. It's not like okay, you don't need to delete again from the application or properties. Keep it as it is there. Because out of 10 microservices, for 7 microservices, common value, right? For 7 microservices, 5 only value. But only this 3 point of view, what you have to do? Instead of deleting from here, add same property with your own value. That's all. Then it will take only your own value in this 3 microservices point of view. So that is how you have to manage this. So these are all practical things. I don't know whether you will practice or not. Just practice it. So whatever the things, it will take some time. But if you are doing all these things, that means you will be very good with the configuration data, how it is working, how it is loading, all these things. Now similarly, I'll create one more use case, last use case, and we'll close this. Can we create configuration files of specific microservices where profiles are not? Yes, obviously. So that means again profile based. So that means, can we create config files of specific microservices profiles or not? Yes, you can create. Simply what you can do is go to here, user-service is the microservice ID, right? Now -dev dot property. So now what will happen? In this case, you have user-service dev dot properties. So with this, what will happen in this case is same Spring Boot profiles concept knowledge you need again here. So now what will happen, guys? Whenever I started user microservice as active profile dev, then what will happen? In this case, how many properties from the data it will load means the moment you started like this, what it will do is it will pick up data from the application-dev. It will pick up from the common application.properties. It will pick up data from user service dev. It will pick up data from user service. From these 4 files, the data will be picked up. So whatever the required properties we configured in our application, values, whatever it is, it will fetch in these 4 files: file 1, file 2, file 3, file 4. Why this time you started with dev profile? So that means automatically what happening? Common plus specific. Common is always there. So common plus specific microservice. Now priority, for example, assume in the common also you have same property. Same property existed in common. I think we discussed already this point just before. Common and specific. Then priority given to specific. Then answer is specific. It will pick up only specific property level like that. So that means if it will check for a property for in these 4 files. Out of these 4 files it is existed, it's okay. If not found, then you will get error. Out of these 4, it's not found any property file. So like that, you can create microservices configuration with specific to profiles point of view also. User has service -dev -prod -uat order service -dev order service dev like that. So that means in this case, the priority goes like this. User first priority given to user -service -dev and then user -service and then application -dev and then application. This is the way the priority is going to deal. Priority. This is how it is going to deal the priority. Priority means what? Property. First, for example, that week dot. For example, you taken week dot days, right? It will check here first. It will check here. If not located in this file, then it will say like, okay, let me go here. Not located. Not located. Not located. Like that means what will happen? For example, weekdays I taken, right? For example, I'm explaining you week dot days. It is looking for this property. So it's not located in 4 of the files, not found in 4. Then finally you will get error. Your application will get an error like property not found. Now, for some reason, same property existed in application level, the properties existed. Assume second use case point of view, it is existed in application as well as user service. So that means this time it is located in application / user -service. Then from which property file it will pick up? User -service. User -service. Now, for example, it is located in user -service, comma, user -service -dev. Then priority given to what, guys? You started on which profile? Dev profile. So that means in this case, the value will be picked up from user -service -dev. It will pick up from here. So that means in this order, whenever it found property, it found here, okay, pick up from there only. It found not found here, then go to next level. Like that, internally the priority is always taken like this. So profile will always have first priority when you have common versus profile point of view. And when you have specific to microservice and common microservice configuration, specific is always having highest priority. So specific, common, specific only, but profile, comma, common. So profile 1 is having highest priority. So that means the data will be picked up from there. For example, assume here the value is as 7 you given. Okay, dev point of view. And here you given user -service point of view 6. Then which one value will come here means definitely 5. Why? Because profile started with a dev profile 5. If you started with not a dev profile, then again value will be loaded as 6 only. So this is all use cases you have to correlate with the profile point of view. See, I given very in-depth knowledge. This is almost applicable to 5 to 6, 7 years 8 experience people level knowledge. So my suggestion is before understanding this last half an hour discussion, before that just refer the Spring Boot profiles once, then you will understand this very easily. So with this we are done with our Spring Boot config server and config clients concept. So far, whatever we discussed as part of our session, whatever the steps we carried as part of config client creation and with respect to adding the dependencies and adding the config server URL with respect to host port numbers and everything, how to manage all our config files with respect to common properties, whatever the things we discussed, everything is documented as part of this Spring Boot and microservices material. So this material is going to help you to answer more with respect to theory point of view in interviews, along with syntaxes and as well as flow diagrams. So if you want this material, you can visit courses.delipit.com and from there you can purchase this material. And this material is having all entire concepts of Spring Boot framework along with microservices. So this material is one-time purchase with lifetime access. so that you can receive all the latest updates, whatever I'm going to add it as part of this material. So you can access in future also once you purchase only one time. Already this material contains almost every topic related to Spring Boot and microservices with respect to each and every scenario. And so whatever the content further also I'm adding to this material, you can access by downloading from the courses.delipit.com once you purchase this.